The Second World War was a time of great chaos, loss and tragedy. This, however, is a heartwarming story set in those incredibly difficult days. It's the story of Wojtek, a Polish war hero who just happened to be a bear.
This remarkable story starts in Poland with the start of World War II, where Poles had it particularly rough. Poland was invaded on the 1st of September 1939 by Nazi Germany. Just 16 days later, the Soviets invaded from the east. The occupiers split the country according to the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact. Both occupations were brutal. The Soviets deported some 800,000 Poles to camps in the depths of the USSR. However, in the spring of 1941, following the German invasion of the Soviet Union, the Soviets re-established relations with the Poles. Under the Sikorski-Maysky Agreement, the Russians agreed to release thousands of Polish prisoners of war and permit them to form an army. General Władysław Anders was tasked with the operation. He evacuated his newly formed army along with tens of thousands of civilians whom he rescued out of the Soviet prison camps to the freedom of British-controlled northern Persia. At a railroad station in Hamadan, the Polish soldiers encountered a young Kurdish boy with a bear cub. The cub's mother had been shot by hunters. The bear was barely alive, tired and hungry, much like the Poles who had survived Soviet gulags and had been marching for hundreds of kilometers. Taken with the cuddly bear pup, the soldiers exchanged him for some Persian coins, a portion of chocolate, a Swiss army knife, and a tin of beef, and nursed it back to health. They fed him milk from an old vodka bottle, and as the bear grew, they fed him fruit, marmalade, and honey. Quickly, the bear became an important member of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. The endeared soldiers named the bear Wojtek, which means happy warrior. As Wojtek grew up among soldiers, he adopted soldierly habits. He learnt how to salute and march on his hind legs. He was also taught to watch over trucks by sitting in the driver's cabin and would often accompany his comrades on guard duty. He developed a particular love for playboxing and wrestling. He adored challenging other soldiers to wrestling matches, even fighting 4 opponents at a time. He would hide his claws and enjoy rolling with them on the floor, slamming them and pretending to bite them. However, he would never ever do harm to anybody. He also picked up some less salubrious habits. He learned how to smoke cigarettes, though he usually ate them after a single puff, and he developed a great love for beer. Upon finishing a bottle, he would look through the opening of the bottle, looking to see where his favorite drink was gone.
And then he looked with one eye down to see if there was anything left. Then he looked with the other eye to see if there was anything left. And then he smashed the bottle.
Wojtek the bear, the mascot of the 22nd Company, travelled with them tirelessly. From Iran to Iraq, then Syria and on to Palestine and Egypt. From Egypt, the Polish Second Corps was tasked to travel to Europe to join the Allied Italian campaign. Since the transport of pet animals was strictly forbidden, the Poles improvised and officially drafted Wojtek into the Polish army. He was given the rank of private, a service number, and his very own paybook, though he was only ever paid in food. And thus, Private Wojtek was allowed to board the British ships. Wojtek was known to be particularly fond of the water. As the Polish troops travelled up the Italian Adriatic coast, upon spotting the sea, Wojtek leapt out of the truck and bounded towards a beach, terrifying the sunbathing girls. However, the Poles were not in Italy for a holiday, and Wojtek would soon swap the beach for a battlefield. The Italian campaign was one of the bloodiest campaigns of the war. The Allies had been stuck for several months, blocked by the German winter line, which guarded the way to Rome. In the Allies' way lay the historic hilltop abbey of Monte Cassino, inhabited now by German soldiers rather than monks. Wojtek, like his human counterparts, experienced and endured the horrors of war. In May of 1944, he came under shell fire for the very first time. Upon seeing his fellow soldiers carrying crates of ammunition, Wojtek responded to the call of duty and joined in, standing on his hind legs and extending his arms to carry 100-pound crates of artillery shells. Alone, he lifted what normally required 4 men. On the 18th of May, the Poles succeeded where 3 other Allied units had failed. They captured the strategically vital mountain fortress of Monte Cassino.
We couldn't do it, and the Canadians and Americans couldn't do it. There were 4 different battles of Monte Cassino, and the 5th one went to the Poles. They won it in the most gallant way I have ever seen. Very, very brave men.
The the exhausted soldiers triumphantly raised a Polish flag over the ruins of the monastery. For his courage and willingness to participate in the battle, Wojtek was promoted to the rank of corporal, and with the approval of the Polish High Command, the 22nd Artillery Supply Company's badge was changed to a bear, carrying an artillery shell. The war was won not long after, but Poland was betrayed at the Yalta Conference, and Poland fell on the Soviet side of the Iron Curtain, and was now ruled by a brutal communist regime. Tens of thousands of Polish soldiers, and one soldier bear, ended up in exile. The 22nd Company, along with Wojtek, was transported to a settlement camp in Scotland, and in 1947, the troops were demobilized. It was time for the soldiers to say goodbye to their most unlikely of companions. The demobilized soldiers entrusted Wojtek to Edinburgh Zoo, hoping to take him to Poland once it was free. It was not to be, however, and Wojtek spent the rest of his days in a 10-square-meter enclosure, a very long way away from his natural habitat. In a sense, his fate mirrored that of tens of thousands of Polish soldiers, homeless heroes, scattered across the globe, unable to return to their occupied homeland, which was ruled with an iron fist by the communists. Wojtek's years in the zoo made him increasingly isolated and depressed, but the Polish soldiers did not forget their cherished companion. They would come to the zoo, often jumping into the enclosure to wrestle with him, and gifted him with cigarettes and beer. Wojtek also never forgot his comrades in arms. Whenever he heard Polish spoken at the zoo, the old soldier bear would stand on his hind legs and wave a paw as if in salute. Similarly to so many Poles who never saw their beloved homeland again, Wojtek died in 1963, in captivity, far away from his friends, his birthplace, and his natural habitat.
He was truly a Pole, in the sense he had lived amongst them, he was one of them. They couldn't separate the one from the other. And the only tragedy is that we never were able to get him back to Poland.
His adoptive homeland, the country he served and fought for in the Second World War.
And that is the story of Wojtek, the Polish bear that went to war.